Senator Honorable Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Ms. Petal Rush, Permanent Secretary acting with responsibility for social development and gender affairs in the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Mrs. Creasy Worm-Charles, Director of Social Development in the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Mr. Sterling Campbell, School Guidance Counselor, Dr. Atlet Harry, Health Psychologist, Mrs. Keezy Matthew Clarence, Head of Psychosocial Support Unit, Pastor Donray Wilkinson, Head of Departments and Units, specially invited guests, stakeholders, participants, members of the media, or online viewers here at home and in the diaspora, good morning. So we're here this morning for our mental health symposium, and that is in observance of Mental Health Day, which is tomorrow. So I am Petra Louison, the Public Relations Officer in the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, and I am going to take you through to today's proceedings. We'll now have the opening prayer by Pastor Donray Wilkinson.
Good morning, all. Could you stand with me as we pray? Our Father, Creator of heaven and earth, I thank you, God, for who you are, a present help in time of trouble, one who cares about us, not just part of us, but our entire life, God. You believe in holistic development, God, and you're the one that gives us peace in the midst of turmoil. God, I thank you, God, for sending men and women who are equipped to help us in times of need, in times of trouble, in times of catastrophe, Father. God, I thank you, God, that you care about our mental health. God, and you have equipped men with the knowledge and skills to help us heal, to help us progress. God, I thank you, Lord, for what you have been doing through the Ministry of Social Development, God. God, and the Psychosocial Unit, God, as they bring about healing to persons, God, who are stuck in emotional situations, God, in mental, God, turmoil, Father. I thank you, God, for your peace, God, that you have been using, God, these men and women, God, to impart onto people from all stratas of society, Father. God, even as we take this time, God, in this symposium to introspect, to think about our mental health needs, God, to think about our self-care, God, I pray, God, that it would be impactful, that what is shared here would be memorable, God, practical, God, and we would apply it. God, I pray, God, for the wisdom to apply the knowledge gained today. God, I thank you for this proceedings. May it go in decency and in order, God, and may it be for your honor and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Wilkinson. We'll now remain standing as we have the national anthem, which will be sung by Mr. Anderson Richardson.
Good morning, everyone. Hail, Grenada, land of us, we pledge ourselves to thee. Heads, hearts, and hands in unity to reach our destiny. Ever conscious of God, being proud of a heritage, may we with faith and courage one people, one family. God bless our nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You may now have your seats. We'll now have welcome and opening remarks by Senator Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs.
Should I be doing that? Or somebody should be doing that? Thank you, Madam PRO and moderator for today's session. Ms. Petal Rush, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Social and Community Development and Gender Affairs. Mr. Findlay Jeffrey, Permanent Secretary with responsibility for community development and housing. Ms. Chrissy Wom, Director of Social Development, Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Ms. Kizzy Matthew Clarence, Head of the Psychosocial Support Unit in the Ministry of Social and Community Development. Mr. Sterling Campbell, School Guidance Counselor. Dr. Alette Henry, Health Psychologist. Pastor Dawn Ray Wilkinson, Head of Departments and Units. Special invited guests, stakeholders, participants, members of the media. Pleasant good morning to all. I bring you greetings from the Ministry of Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs. Our ministry joins with other ministries and organizations providing mental health services in Grenada to observe World Mental Health Day on Friday, October 10th, 2025. As announced by the World Federation of Mental Health, the theme for this year's observance is access to services, mental health in catastrophes and emergencies. This theme emphasizes the crucial need to ensure that mental health support is readily available and accessible to those affected by crisis, including humanitarian workers on the front lines. World Mental Health Day serves as a powerful reminder that there is no health without mental health. This year's campaign focuses on the urgent need to support the mental health and psychological needs of people affected by humanitarian emergencies. According to the World Health Organization, crises such as natural disasters, conflicts, and public health emergencies cause emotional distress, with 1 in 5 individuals experiencing a mental health condition. Supporting the mental health well-being of individuals during such crises is not just important, it saves lives. It gives people the strength to cope, the space to heal, to recover, and rebuild, not only as individuals, but as communities. By investing in evidence and community-based interventions, we can address immediate mental health needs, foster long-term recovery, and empower people and communities to rebuild their lives. On this World Mental Health Day, let us intensify our efforts to create a world where mental health is valued, protected, and accessible for all, especially in the face of adversity. We recognize the struggles and stresses that some of our citizens are experiencing. Some may be struggling with financial issues, unemployment, loss of a loved one, divorce, sexual abuse, gender-based violence, or chronic illnesses, among many other stressors. Our brothers and sisters in Carriacou and Pitimatnik are still healing from the trauma of Hurricane Beryl. We recognize your resiliency and encourage you to keep working towards recovery. Good mental health is necessary for daily functioning in our families, workplace, and communities. As a nation, we must stop the stigma and discrimination against people suffering from mental illnesses. We each must do our part to encourage our family members, co-workers, neighbors, church brothers and sisters, partners, or anyone who is struggling emotionally and psychologically to seek help. The government recognizes the investment in mental health services at the national level is extremely important. Many people suffer in silence because of how society treats them. Our ministry wants to lend its voice with other ministries and organizations working in the mental health field to end societal misconceptions about mental illness. Every one of us has a right to good mental health. We need our churches, NGOs, private sector, community organizations to get on board with mental health. Today, we celebrate the importance of mental health in the lives of all of us gathered here. Government workers from the various ministries, social workers from the various ministries, child protection officers, police, nurses, and NGOs. We recognize that all of us have a part to play in fostering the good mental health of our nation's citizens. As together, we can save lives. I wish you a very successful and enjoyable symposium, and please do make the most of it today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Let us be reminded that we need to do our part to support those suffering with mental illnesses, and also remember that it takes a collaborative effort in doing so. We now have a relaxation with song by Alina Mark.
Good morning, everyone. This song is a song dedicated to all of us who are in human services and the part that we play, the active role that we play in reaching the lives of all that we interact with. You are not hidden. There's never been a moment you were forgotten. You are not hopeless. Though you have been broken, your innocence stolen, I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. And I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. There is no distance that cannot be covered over and over. You are defenseless, and I'll be your shelter, I'll be your armor. I hear you whisper underneath your breath. I hear your SOS, your SOS. And I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. And I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the hardest fight. It's true, I will rescue you. I hear the whisper underneath your breath. I hear you whisper you have nothing left. And I will send out an army to find you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. And I will never stop marching to reach you in the middle of the darkest night. It's true, I will rescue you. Oh, I will rescue you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mark. And to those of you suffering, remember, we are here to rescue you. We'll now have the first talk for this morning, mental health in the workplace. And this will be done by Mr. Sterling Campbell. Mr. Sterling Campbell is a school counselor with the Ministry of Education, responsible for supervising counseling services in secondary schools and at the district level in St. Patrick and St. Mark. He holds a Bachelor of Education in Guidance and Counseling from St. George's University and is currently pursuing a master's in psychology. With a passion for youth development, Mr. Campbell has also served as a teacher and training facilitator. He is actively involved in philanthropic work through Redeem, a community-based initiative that supports at-risk youth and promotes positive change. Outside of his professional and philanthropic duties, he enjoys producing music, songwriting, and fishing. Mr. Campbell remains committed to supporting the well-being and growth of young people through his counseling, creative expression, and community service. Let's welcome Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Honorable Gloria Thomas, Minister for Social and Community Development, Housing and Gender Affairs, Ms. Petal Rush, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Social Development and Gender Affairs, Mr. Finley Jeffrey, Permanent Secretary, staff, viewers online, pleasant good morning. So let me start off by saying this. About 30% of individuals are enraged because of stress. So I want you to do me one favor. Look to the right at this point in time to the person next to you. Look to the left. The person you looked at, does that person look like they're enraged? Well, guess what? If it's not that person, it is you, because it's 1 in 3. Yep. So this morning, we're looking at mental health and wellness in the workplace, right? So for quick coverage, we're looking at a definition of mental health, importance of mental health, stressors on the workplace, tips on handling stress, some of the treatment, mental wellness. We're going to look at a definition, and we're going to look at some inexpensive or probably what would cost you nothing to actually boost your mental health. All right? So to begin with, or to continue, the definition. When we talk about mental health, we are talking about psychological, how we feel. We are talking about psychological, what we think, emotional, how we feel, and social, how we interact with each other. Everybody get that so far? There are some, some proponents, what they do, they added the spiritual aspect of it also, which I think is very important. All right? Mental health plays a major role on how employees handle stress, how they relate to each other and clients, and make decisions. So have you come across a coworker also handling a client, or even yourself, and even when you say good morning, they are uptight? Sometimes they respond, what's so good about the morning? Yeah? Very uptight, right? And imagine clients. So I have this 12 by 6 principle, meaning that from 12 feet, you acknowledge somebody coming for service. 6 feet, you make gestures to welcome that person and to serve. But sometimes you would walk right up to the table and knock, and individuals would be like, and back to what they're doing. In other words, you can't wait or. Have you seen these taking place on the workplace? Yeah, it could be because of a lack of mental health, right? So moving on. It directly impacts productivity, team morale, and overall success. Employees with good mental health, they are usually creative. They usually would engage, and they are also resilient in the face of challenges. Mental health, why is it important? Well, one, it reduces absenteeism and also presenteeism. I'm going to just touch on that in a little while. Lowers staff turnover and also improves job satisfaction and performance. A mentally healthy workplace encourages open communication. So we're talking about employers, we're talking about managers. You have to try to be a leader as opposed to a manager. You know, there's a big difference, right? Managers are usually so goal-oriented, but the leaders would actually have that great positive journey while we are trying to achieve the goal. Making sense? Yeah? So you have to foster respect and a sense of belonging, fairness to all, to everyone, as they say in Patwa, tout moun bagay. So poor mental health impact on the workplace. So we're looking at presenteeism. Presenteeism is really a phenomenon where the worker is there physically, but mentally there are several other places, and work isn't one of them. Yeah? Have you experienced that? I want to ask you to show the hands. Yeah. Then we have absenteeism. It's the opposite. You are always sick or away from the job. Yeah? Do you know workers like that? Yeah, so I would tell you, don't call your name. Right? So, going on, it may also adversely or impact multiple areas of employee performance, which includes focus and decision making, time management, completing physical tasks, social interactions, and also what we have, the communication, right? So sometimes on the workplace, we have the notion that actions speak louder than words. Everybody heard that saying before, right? But I want to advance to you, while actions may speak louder than words, it may not speak clearer than words. So you have to use your words and not so much gestures to show somebody, listen, leave me alone and so on. You can say it nicely and say, hey, I am not going through a great time right now, and I just need a little time to catch myself. Making sense? Right. So let me just move on quickly. I'm just looking at the time also. Right. So also what triggers, I would say, stressors, or we have what you have decline in mental health on the workplace. You have heavy workloads and unrealistic deadlines. Yeah, so you have a pile of papers and you're expected to sort through it. It came last night and we want it for cabinet meeting tomorrow morning. You know those tough deadlines? Unrealistic deadlines. So those can actually pose serious mental health issues. You also have a lack of support or recognition. Sometimes on your work, do you feel like you're all alone? Yeah, that happens sometimes. You feel like, listen, I am doing this. Where's the team? Everybody speaks about team. Where is the team? Sometimes, again, it's a case of no matter what you do, you are not recognized. You feel meaningless, as though you don't matter at all. That ever happens to you sometimes? Also, some of the other stressors, we have conflict with coworkers or management. And let me hasten to say that conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. Some of the best things in life come about because of conflict, not so? Think about when you were young and you need to get your mother's milk. Conflict start. You want to pull the dress apart, right? And then after you get milk. But I think what happens is the response to conflict that makes a big difference. Yeah? So conflicts, embrace them, but ensure that your response always remain professional. Right? Also, we have job insecurity. You're not too sure because it's like in Hollywood, you're acting forever on the workplace. You cannot have a permanent position. Yeah? You have what you call limited career growth or unclear expectations. So where you are, you feel stuck, no way out. All these can increase what we call stressors or lack of mental health on the workplace. Moving on. You also have the balance between work and life. Let me see those of you who have life apart from work. Just raise up your hands a while. Right. Most people don't have life apart from work. You live for work. Yeah? So they ask you, what time you reach on work this morning? 5. What time you left? 10 p.m. And some crazy hours, it simply means that, listen, you are turning to your work for satisfaction. Life is more than that. If all you can think about is living for work, I would say visit one of the counselors so that we can help you, reprioritize. Okay, so also uncomfortable work environment. That is something that causes a lot of problems. And a lot of times, the people who complain, not all the time, but quite a bit of times, the people who complain are the people who made their beds in that way, and then they're upset about lying in it. Yeah? So, on the work, try to be one that is proactive to maintain what you call a conducive environment for work where we can be productive. Yeah? Gossiping and so on, that's a whole different aspect of everything. I would just say try to keep home and personal matters away from work. Right? So moving on quickly. So I want to show you some areas that stress or the lack of mental health, some of the areas in your body that it affects. So look at this. It affects, good. It affects the brain and nerve. It affects muscles and joints, your heart, stomach, pancreas, intestine, reproductive system. You see, I just want you to look at that for a while. So whenever we have an uncomfortable work environment, or we are stressed, or we do not pay particular attention to our mental health, all these can be severely affected. Yeah? Is there anyone here that you feel really good when you're home, in the morning you get up, you feel good, and as soon as you think about work, you start having a stomach problem or headache? All right. First church, I'd ask you to say amen. Right? So that is what we call a psychosomatic illness. Yeah? Usually you have a medical condition, you experience physical symptoms, and there is no medical basis for the symptoms you're experiencing. So sometimes from the time you reach on the workplace, your stomach starts to hurt, you have a headache, you start to feel sick. And you could understand why we have things as presenteeism and also absenteeism, right? Because of these psychosomatic illnesses. So I want to tell you that some of the ways that it is manifested, you have things like muscle tension, muscle aches, headaches, gastrointestinal problems, fatigue, nervousness, the big A, anxiety, the big D, depression. Yeah? Loss of enthusiasm and anxiety. These are some of the ways that they manifest themselves. So research on stress and medical complications. It says stress can cause certain gastrointestinal disease. What's the second one there, somewhat? I'm not hearing you. Yes, some cancers because of stress. Now think about it. In the case of acute stress, it requires immediate attention, but it's not prolonged, right? So for instance, a dog chasing you or ran out behind you and you got frightened, startled and so on. So you have, the adrenaline start pumping and so on, release of cortisol. And you are able to pass Kirani James and beat him, right? And after that, everything subsides. You might shake a little bit because the muscle, and so on. But imagine in the case of chronic stress, where you have prolonged exposure to stress. What happens to that cortisol? Now, after a while, you have the immune system being broken down. Yeah? So any little cold pass, you would catch it. Anything pass, you would catch it. Not to mention, some of them, that's where you have some of the cancers and so on start developing, based on research, right? So sometimes it even, and everybody here trying to look younger and get younger, not so? Let me see, well, I find nobody in answer. Let me see all those who plan to get older by tomorrow. You see, right? So the thing is, stress or lack of mental health affects even the process of aging. You age faster. Something that I'm noticing now among our population is people are having problems maintaining and actually initiating and maintaining sleep. There are a lot of people complaining that, hey, I can't sleep. And if I fall asleep, I get up 2 hours after and I can't go back to sleep. So all of these things, and of course, when your sleep is very important, especially within nighttime, between the hours of 8 or 7 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's when you have melatonin and so on being produced, healing and repairs. You know the whole biology stuff behind it. So in other words, sleep is important. It helps with digestion and everything else, right? So, having said that, do you think it is important to prioritize mental health at the workplace? Yeah? Let me hear you say that louder. Do you think it's important to prioritize mental health at the workplace? Absolutely. So let me just give you some tips that can help you to maintain a healthy mindset, or not just mindset, but mental health. Tip 1, manage your workload. And let me tell you this, and some bosses might be upset, I don't know, but there is a word called or labeled no for a reason. And there is no, and there is no, I can't. There is the respectful version of it. I would say as professionals, we must be able to look at our schedule, see what we have done, prioritize. And if you're asked to do something, even by your boss, you can say, Chief, based on how things are going and what you want me to achieve, this is not possible. Everybody understanding that? Would you like me to reprioritize? Because I cannot handle everything at the same time. Does that sound unreasonable? Right? You can ask to reprioritize. Because at the end of the day, if you keep taking it on, what happens to you? After a while, you might want to hide yourself because they start calling you Brambler. You cannot deliver on nothing. Yeah? So say no, respectfully. Right? Practice time management. And I won't go much into that, but practice time management. Have a schedule, how you want the day to run. And I would say leave 30% of it free so that you can catch up. There are some people that plan, hey, 8 o'clock are supposed to be in front of this door. By 12 o'clock are supposed to be eating by this time. And then you realize if you're running late, you have a whole new mental crisis now because I'm running late and I need to catch up. So leave some time free, right? Take regular breaks. It's important to take a break. You might think it's counterproductive, but it's very productive to take a break. Yeah? After a while, your mind gets saturated. You don't think. In economics, they call it the law of diminishing returns. Level of utility is decreasing at an increasing rate. Yeah? So you just find that what you're doing, faster it goes down and you cannot do it. Sometimes you're typing and you realize you're falling asleep, you're spelling things wrong and so on. Take a break, right? Maintain open communication. Communicate. There are some people I don't understand in an age where information can be gotten from anywhere. We still try to withhold information. I don't understand the power behind that. I think it's so powerful to give information. Yeah? Of course, there are things what they say is classified, need to know, and based on pay grade and so on. But at the same time, as much as possible, if everybody is aware of the goals and you communicate that clearly, I think we're going to have not just productivity, but we are going to have employees, co-workers that have a pretty well-balanced, I should say, mental state of affairs, right? So moving on, build positive relationships. Build positive relationships. I am one of those people that value relationship more than things. Some people value things and have never seen a thing bring something for someone when they're ill. Yeah? So whether that thing is money, your house, land, vehicle, whatever it is, usually it's people that takes care of people. Making sense? Yeah? Build positive relationships. Create work-life balance. So there's a time for work, there's a time for home, there's a time for fun. Create that balance. And don't tell me the balance is what? 10 to 9 or 10 to 90, sorry. So 90% work and 10%, no. That won't work. You need to have a fine balance. Practice self-care, which we are going to do a little later on, just checking the time. Seek professional help when needed. Moving on quickly. What can be done? Now this one here, psychotherapy. Therapy can help people work through issues that have triggered the mental health condition. And let me make an appeal to our men. So we are men inside here today. Let me say, ooh, yes, man. So guess what? Mental health and even how we express, like when we are stressed, depression and anxiety and so on, it's different to ladies, right? Now, ladies have a real good, I should say, what to put it, like a good weapon in the arsenal. Their mouth. They speak a lot. Yeah? Men, on the other hand, a matter of fact, research, and I say this all the way I go, research is showing that women are outliving men by 5 to 7 years. And they're saying, apart from some of the nonsense we do as men, but they're saying what happens is that men, we keep everything inside. Machismo, we grew up with that, you know. The men mustn't cry, boys mustn't cry, we must be hard. and so on. On the contrary, ladies and so on would speak and cry about any and everything. And they have their support, not so? So men, if you want to live a little longer, you need to speak a little more. And cry. Watch crying is one of the best things out, you know? A matter of fact, Lego a good ball. And as the reggae artist say, you know, if never let them see you cry. You could go in the garden on the beach early in the morning or something like that. But cry. Yep. So, moving on. So, of course, sometimes mental health issues when it turns to mental illness. And we are not even going as far as schizophrenia and these other mental illness. We are talking about things like anxiety, depression, and so on, right? So sometimes it gets so out of hand that you may even have to see a doctor, psychiatrist or so, and they would have to prescribe medication, mood stabilizers, and sometimes even psychotropic drugs and so on, right? It's always good to combine it with psychotherapy. And I would tell you before you go into drugs, when I say drugs in terms of doctors prescribing drugs for whatever illness you're going through, have a chat with a counselor. And doctors, if you're online, forgive me for this, but generally, counselors and therapists are some of the best people that can walk you through a problem without having to turn to drugs. All right? So when you turn to pharmaceuticals, you have you can become dependent on some of these drugs. Like for instance, like I mentioned, some people don't initiate and sustain sleep well. They may try to go to a doctor to prescribe some sleeping pills. And after a while, they realize they are addicted to it every minute that they need it and so on. So we try to use things like, hey, try, almond milk. Try not having TVs and screen times on before you go to bed. Do some exercising so your body feels tired so you might fall asleep, Things like that. We try to go through a process like that with you. Moving on quickly. Peer support. Peer support is very, very important. Peer support is very important. And a lot of times when we are supporting as peers, we always figure we need to talk. But a lot of times we don't need to talk. We just need to listen. Yeah? Those of you who are religious, if you remember the story of Job, yeah, the only time his friends messed up was when they opened their mouths. All the time they were there with him, going through it with him, And only when they opened their mouth, they messed up. Right? So sometimes it's just being there for the person. Yeah? They are stressed out. Based on what they're going through, and you see them, they're going at the workplace, they maybe start washing wares or whatever. You can be right there and dry the wares with them, Things like that would help. And they speak, and when they speak, they hear themselves, and sometimes they find solutions by you just being there, right? So moving on quickly. So mental wellness. I don't think I'm doing too badly for time. Yeah, mental wellness. A state of well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities. And that's a simplified version, right? No need to get technical. So really quickly, how can we have mental wellness? So I mentioned a couple things that could be done, what we can do. Now, here are some things, especially in Grenada, that is either inexpensive or doesn't cost anything at all, because sometimes we have backyard gardens, we have the beach all around Grenada and waters and so on. So we're looking at nutrition. Your nutrition is very important. A balanced diet is always important. Yeah? On a daily basis, try to consume 2 to 3 servings of fruits, 3 to 5 servings of vegetables, and a whole plant food diet. That's what the experts say to help you maintain a healthy lifestyle. Because if you eat healthy, you remember there's a connection. You remember earlier when I showed you the diagram, the parts of the body that your mind affect? So it goes both ways. They are interrelated. So you have to eat well so that your mind can work well. And when your mind works well, your body works well too. Yeah? Moving on quickly, exercise. Exercise is very important. Let me see how many of you here exercise. All right, good for you. Let me see how many of you here go out for a walk to take selfies. So I always laugh at that. There are some people, you buy the whole gear for exercising. And then I heard one of them, while they're taking their selfie, said that, listen, man, I don't want to sweat. Yeah, so we need what you call rigorous exercises, right? 35 minutes to 60 minutes a day. Check your physician to ensure that you can do exercises and so on to make sure you're healthy enough. And it's very important. One of the best forms of exercise, so I should tell you this first. So with exercise, it controls weight. It combats certain illnesses or conditions, stroke and high blood pressure. It improves mood. So if you find your mood's with the moon, exercise can do well with the mood. It can boost your energy, and it also assists with sleeping, right? One of the best forms of exercise is swimming. Swimming targets most of the muscles and so on in the body. And we have a little dilemma in that we have water right around Grenada, but we don't always have swimmers right around Grenada. But you don't have to go in deep water. You can be somewhere shallow that you can stand, but get to stretch out those muscles. After swimming, walking is pretty much okay, but you would have to ensure that you have the proper footwear. All right? Moving on quickly. So keep in mind, the acronym I'm using is New Start. So nutrition, exercise. We go into water next. So water is very important for hydration and cleansing. It is the best liquid to keep you hydrated. It may decrease liver and kidney problems. Now, if you are sick physically, don't you think it would affect the mind? Not so? What's about men? Well, you know us, when we're sick, we are like big babies, right? Yeah, definitely. So you're talking about a whole mental health crisis when a man's sick. Okay, so it aids digestion, helps to normalize blood pressure, and cushion the joints. So as you grow older and you think you have joint pain, try drinking a little more water, ease up on the juice, On a daily basis, drink an average of 8 cups of water. However, from person to person, the requirement may be less or more. So you can operate accordingly, right? Moving on quickly, we're on S. Sunlight. Sunlight, vitamin D. It also helps with mental health and aids in dealing with depression. What it aids with dealing with? Yeah, that's another one that we have. So depression is another big one we have going on. There are a lot of people, and it's hard to diagnose because they are high functioning, but they are depressed. So it's hard to tell that they are depressed. So sunlight helps with that. You notice depressed people, they don't like to come outside, always want the windows to close up, always in darkness and so on, don't like to do things they used to like doing before and so on. So sunlight helps. Exercise helps because it gets the dopamine going and so on, right? So I mentioned that sunlight aids with, where am I? Yes, right. So try to limit exposure to sunlight for about 15 to 30 minutes per day, preferably in the morning, not so much in the evening when it's draining. Also, it is still recommended that you use some form of suntan lotion or so, right? Sunscreen, yep. Avoid peak hours, as I said, when the sun is really hot and draining. Moving on quickly. So we on T. Temperance. Temperance is important, and temperance is like what? Self-control, not so? Self-control. And it's a case of yes or no, how much you should take, how much you shouldn't take. And there are some cases you should say no. Imagine you're trying to be temperate in, exhibit temperance in taking poison. You all understand what I'm saying, right? It's a clear no. You don't say, well, I go take a little bit of poison and try to get away with that. It's a total no. So some of the things that you have illegal substances and drugs and so on, these are things you stay away from. It's a complete no. Other things you have like food, you have to be temperate in terms of the food that we eat. Sex, gambling, shopping, internet, and all these kind of things. And of course, we're talking about the workplace. So you have to exhibit temperance on the workplace also. Making sense? Coming down to the end. Air. The body requires an adequate supply of fresh air to assist in functioning. That's optimally. Without air, the body may completely shut down and your sense may operate at a poor level without awareness. So imagine on the workplace, you're not in a well-ventilated place. Yeah? So you're thinking slower. making decisions slower, productivity goes all the way down. You don't even feel good about yourself. So you have to try to ensure that it's well ventilated and so on. Rest. So somebody said they interviewed a little baby, and the little baby said, you know what, when I get rest, even mommy is happier. So in other words, rest is so important because without rest, people are very irritable. Yeah? Without proper rest, somebody who's always cheerful on mornings, you come and you're giving them the old talk and they're ready to shut you down. Yep, so rest is very important. Rest helps with weight control and better mood. It sharpens the brain function, and it also gives a healthier heart. Now, resting, I mentioned earlier, between the hours of 7 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning. Adults, you try to get as much as 7 hours, as close to that as you can. Yeah? So that all the repairs and so on can take place. And of course, trust. Sometimes I heard like guys like Durkheim and Freud and so on, they mentioned that a belief in God and so on is more or less like the opiate of the people, meaning that the people are always left in a state of stupor. They don't know what's happening. It's a statement that a lot of people contend with, but what I think it is, it's a case where it's a good thing knowing that you can rely and solely trust on a being that is more than you and that is able to take care of things for you. Yeah? So it's not a sense of stupor or a sense of nothing is happening, but it's a belief system that when you commit and you surrender so much, at the end of the day, you are in perfect peace, knowing that even this time of stress will soon pass because you have God. So it's a matter of trusting the Lord with your heart and leaning not into your own understanding. And with that trust from God, even on the workplace, you would realize that your work ethics is even better because you are working for? I'm afraid to say it because, all you want to work for man. All you working for who? For God and not for? Right. So when you think you're cutting back time, whose time you think you're cutting back? So whoever is paying the workers here, all you need to give me an extra tip for that, right? Productivity gone up. Yeah, but on a serious note, you always find yourself in a better place when you know you're working for God and not for man. So in other words, you give 100, and then when you shut off for your time, you shut off 100 for your time also. Making sense? So, summary. Mental health affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Mental and physical health are interrelated and may affect each other. Several symptoms may suggest a mental health condition. So we look at the symptoms. Treatment plans and prevention strategies can assist greatly. Incorporate New Start. Anybody remember? If you can tell me what New Start means, acronym, you're going to get free lunch today. Yeah. What does the N stand for? Nutrition. The E? Exercise. W? S? T? Temperance. A? R? And T? Trust in God. And today I say, Matthew 6:33 as I conclude, but seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness. And if we go further, or actually if we go down to like 6:25, it tells us that, listen man, we shouldn't worry. A lot of times we try to worry about our stature. We try to worry. He said the birds of the air, they don't plant, but they eat. Not so? So he's telling us that he loves us so much more that we should never worry. And final question to you. If you have a problem in life, you have to ask yourself this. Can I do something about it? And if the answer is yes, don't worry. Do something about it. If the answer is no, don't worry because you can't do anything about it. So I say God's blessings and keep rising and take mental health seriously on the workplace. Thank you so much. Sorry about that, love.
Thank you very much, Mr. Campbell, and for that powerful presentation, the importance of maintaining mental health in the workplace and the significance of New Start. We now have a gift presentation, and we'll ask Mr. Etienne to help us with that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your appreciation. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Campbell. We now soothe our senses. Mindfulness is being in the present without judgment. Soothing our five senses is an important stress reliever to reduce emotional distress. Let's practice for a few minutes with this Soothe Your Senses exercise. Let's sit back and engage.
Whether you want to take a break, refocus, or simply ground yourself into the here and now. It can also be helpful if you are feeling overwhelmed, uncomfortable, or in pain. Please take a moment to find a comfortable position. If you are sitting, keep your back tall but relaxed. Gently close your eyes or rest your gaze on a spot on the floor in front of you. Notice the ground as it provides support beneath you. Take a couple of deep breaths. And as you breathe out, settle into your body, relaxing any obvious tensions you are holding. Then, breathing normally, bring your awareness to your body, sensing for a short while how it presents itself to you. Where on your body is the chair supporting you? What does this feel like? There is no particular way to be. Just notice how you are at this very moment. There is no need to look for a special experience. Simply notice what is actually happening, moment by moment. If you notice discomfort, whether it's physical pain, emotional pain, or painful thoughts, instead of pushing against them, simply allow them to be there. For a few moments, just be open to any sensations in your body. Then, from within the body, as part of the body, become aware of your breathing, however it happens to appear. There is no right or wrong way to breathe while you practice being mindful. The key is to simply notice how your breathing is right now. Perhaps notice how each in-breath has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and each out-breath has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Breathing in and out, a beginning, a middle, and an end. You might also notice where in your body you feel the breath most clearly. This may be your abdomen rising and falling, your chest expanding and contracting, the air passing through your nostrils or over your upper lip. Is the air cool or warm? Or perhaps you feel your breath externally as your clothing becomes tighter on the in-breath and looser on the out-breath. Wherever the breath tends to appear most clearly, allow that area to be the center of your attention. Breathing in and out, in and out. Now, take a moment to listen to any sounds you're hearing. Observe their quality, whether they are low or high-pitched, and how loud they are. Also observe how you're responding to those sounds. You may notice an automatic tendency to try to identify their source. See if you can suspend that for a moment and just notice the sounds as sounds. If you're in a very quiet room, then notice the silence. Now, become aware of the sensations around you. Let them be there. Notice the light and shade, or the air touching the surface of your body. Is the air cool or warm? Is there a breeze? Next, allow your awareness to be with your emotions. How would you describe your emotional experience right now? Are you happy? Content? Sad? Irritated? Anxious? Or calm? Or is it hard to be sure what you're feeling? Just allow your emotional experience to be. Be aware of your emotional experience right now. Next, notice any thoughts that are passing through your mind. You can ask yourself, what am I thinking? Simply rest your attention on your thoughts for a few moments. Now spend a few moments resting quiet on the sensations of the breath in the body, and let any sounds, thoughts, and feelings come and go. Notice and acknowledge whatever arises. Allow it to be there and allow it to leave. If you find you are holding on to a thought, a feeling, or an emotion, gently focus your attention back to your breath.
Thank you very much. That was very soothing. We'll now have our second presentation by Dr. Arlette Harry, Perimenopause and Menopause. Dr. Arlette Harry wears several hats at St. George's University. She serves as the Vice President of Multicultural Affairs, Chair of the Department of Medical Humanities and History of Medicine, and Director of the Masters in Clinical Community Psychology. These roles may seem many and varied, but they have a common thread. They allow for ways to channel her passion for serving groups who are marginalized by inequitable systems, health, education, or otherwise, by creating inclusive environments. Dr. Harry is a health psychologist whose areas of research and expertise include health equity, sense of belonging, stress and coping, managing chronic illnesses, and working with older adults and their families. Dr. Harry.
Good morning, everyone. I stand on protocol already established. And for those of you who know me, this is going to be very difficult standing here because I tend to roam when I'm doing these, but we'll make it work. Am I controlling the slide or okay? So we want to talk about the M word today. Menopause, mindset, and management. And for some of you in the room, you're probably going, why? I don't need to hear about menopause. Maybe some of the men in the room are thinking, I don't need to hear about menopause. But here's the thing. Every single one of us in the room needs to learn about menopause. Either we're going through it, we will be going through it, or you have a partner that will be going through it, right? So this is a us thing. It's not the women thing. All right? I want us to agree on something today as we head into this conversation. If something is shared with you, let's say maybe your neighbor tells you something about their experience, I want us to agree that what's said here stays here. But what we learn here leaves here. Right? Do I have your agreement on that? All right. Okay. So what we want to get through today, we want to increase our awareness and understanding of perimenopause and menopause. We want to empower ourselves with some management strategies. And we want to also create and promote supportive environments. I think what has happened is that it's something we don't talk about. We are experiencing these symptoms. We're not talking about it in families. We're not talking about it with our friends. But we're all going through it. And if we're able to create those supportive environments, I think we'll be better able to manage. So, I want you to get your phones out and go to menti.com. Don't use this code. Because I have to use, I'm using Rhonda's laptop. So go to menti.com, and you should be able to see a code there. And I want you to put one word that describes how you feel about menopause. Go to the one that you, yeah. Okay, there you go. So if you go to menti.com, you can put in that code or you can use the QR code. How do you feel about menopause? One word. Okay. Wow. What are you noticing? It's all negative, right? I'm seeing old, stressful, uncomfortable, frustrating, depressing, dreadful, uncertain. My hope is that by the end of our little session today, we can reframe that a little bit, but I also understand why we're using those words. Thank you so much. So let's go into some definitions. I want to first define perimenopause and then talk about what's happening at that point. I hate to tell you this, but for some people, perimenopause can start as early as in the 30s. Typically in the 40s, and for some people as late as the 50s, but it can start as early as the 30s. So what's starting to happen? Or estrogen levels are starting to decrease. So you have the irregular periods, you start having the hot flashes, the vaginal dryness, the moodiness, the night sweats, right? And I'm seeing some head shaking. When we get into menopause, and really that's the point where you've gone a year, 12 consecutive months without having a period, right? So if you're still having a period once every 3 months, you're still in perimenopause. 12 consecutive months without a period, and that marks the end of your reproductive years. The ovaries have stopped producing the reproductive hormones, and typically that occurs between 45 and 55, on average around 52. When we head into postmenopause, well, that's for the rest of our lives, right? Hopefully at that time, the uncomfortable symptoms are starting to go away. Now, here's something to consider. I wouldn't call it good news or bad news, but menopause can last, the symptoms of menopause can last between 7 and 10 years. We'll talk about how we can make that more manageable, right? There's nothing we could do about that. Because we have reduced, go back to that previous slide for me, that reduced estrogen, it puts us at increased risk for osteoporosis, right, or low bone density. Weight changes. You find that you're gaining weight and you never used to gain weight before, especially in the stomach area. It also puts you at increased risk for cardiovascular diseases. We really underestimate the impact and the protective quality of estrogen, right? Dry skin, low libido, urinary incontinence, which means you sneeze, and what happens? Right. You laugh too hard? Okay. Changes in mood. We're more susceptible to depression and anxiety. Or metabolism changes. And so as we talk about some of the strategies, we're going to be looking at nutrition and exercise because they are really crucial. So how can we take care of ourselves? It's really about lifestyle changes. From a nutritional perspective, and we're going to be pulling some things from New Start, Mr. Campbell, so thanks. Making sure we have calcium, because remember we talked about having low bone density. If you're at risk for osteoporosis, it means if you fall, you're more at risk for having a fracture or a break, right? So calcium, But to make sure our body absorbs calcium, we also have to do vitamin D, right? Or protein, again, building muscle, and fiber. Limiting sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. And for persons like me, who like to bake every weekend because I like cake, that has been a struggle. For persons like me, who like coffee, that has also been a struggle. Again, notice I'm not saying cut it out altogether. You remember the T, one of the T's in New Start? Temperance. So it means instead of eating half the cake when it comes out of the oven, right? It's hot cake. You eat a slice. It means instead of baking every weekend, you bake once a month. Every other weekend, once a month. But you realize, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, you realize with these changes, you have to have a conversation with your family, right? You're making these changes to help you cope with this, but your family is a part of the process as well. So this cannot be done in isolation, because the kids are going to be wondering, well, how come mommy not making buns anymore? And if your husband or your significant other has a sweet tooth, he's going to be wondering, what's going on? Okay? Exercise. So at least 150 minutes a week, mixing aerobic, strength, and flexibility training. And I think for a lot of us who, when we think about exercise, we think about the aerobic part, right? Getting the heart rate up and getting a good sweat. But we don't do enough with strength training. So whether it's push-ups, whether it's jump rope, you also have to make sure, because remember I told you about with low bone density, you want to make sure that you're keeping that flexibility and you are strengthening your muscles. Having a good sleep hygiene. And when I talk about sleep hygiene, I'm not talking about smelling good to go to sleep, although that is also a good thing. But it's really making sure we have a good routine, a cool environment. And I know this has been a challenge for the last, I would say, month, because it's been so hot, right? But figuring out how to keep that room cool. Avoiding screens before bed. Many of us go to bed with the phone, the laptop, the tablet, the TV, and the significant other. How are we dealing with all this competition? But anyway, right? So making sure that we are avoiding screens before bed as well. Because that blue light really affects our ability to fall asleep quickly and also stay asleep. So same thing you were talking about, Mr. Campbell. Talking again about the mind-body connection. Doing yoga, breathing exercises, guided imagery, journaling, just putting our thoughts out there. You mentioned in terms of the way women cope, and yes, generally that is true, but I also find sometimes as we get older, we tend to keep a lot of things in. And journaling also helps to get that out. So let's talk about some strategies. Normalize the conversation. Menopause is a normal part of life. Just as how menstruation was, so is menopause. And I think a lot of times the reason why we don't talk about it is because we see it as this condition that I have. It's a normal part of life. So normalize the conversation. Talk about it in your church groups. Talk about it with your daughters. Talk about it with your friends, right? Normalize it. I had originally joined support groups and I thought, are there support groups for menopause? I don't think we have that. So let's create that. Whether you do it in your churches, in your women's groups, and I'm saying women's groups, but please include the men in that conversation. At the workplace, we talk about creating that supportive environment. Have the conversation. Talk about what you're experiencing. Talk about what are some of the things you're doing to help with those symptoms. If the mood changes are significant, if depression is at a point where it's not just the blues and you just don't want to get out of bed that one day, and it's becoming pervasive and it's every day, it's 3 days a week, then please seek counseling, right? If the anxiety is also getting out of control, please seek counseling. How do we support others going through menopause? So you may not be going through it right now, you may not ever go through it, but we can support others, right? Listen without judgment. And what does that mean? I'm going to put it out there to you. I'm not preaching today, so I want to hear from you. When we talk about listening without judgment, what does that mean? I know many of you in here, because I would just call a name. Lanice, you want to share? No, listening without judgment. Like, what does that mean in this context? Yes. Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. So in the workplace, for example, a colleague might be sharing that this is, I can't wear the jacket to work anymore because I'm feeling so hot. And you're like, well, that is what you're supposed to wear to work, right? Wonder why some of us laughing. I would not comment. So that's where offering flexibility comes in. Because trust me, after the hot flash comes a whole other feeling, right? So you could have the jacket on the back of the chair to use it just in case. Educate yourself. As you mentioned, we have access to information at our fingertips. Educate yourself. Put your symptoms in. See how other people are managing it. And if it's at a point where you see that person is struggling, please encourage medical care. There are a lot of times, again, we're not having these conversations with our physicians, which is sad. And sometimes they're not asking about it either, which is also sad. But you are the one experiencing it. Bring it up in your yearly checkups, right? Talk about it. So in the workplace, we want to promote open dialogue. We may have to adjust the environment, right? We may have to give this person an extra fan. But you wouldn't know they need that accommodation except communication happens, a conversation happens, right? Hopefully we have wellness programs at work, like encouraging us to exercise, encouraging us to do our pap smears or self-exams, breast exams, right? Include menopause in that. It's a wellness issue, right? And it's also a part of normalizing the conversation. Just skip that one. I want to touch on having the talk. Many women go through menopause without having a conversation with their significant other. So he may find that you're probably a little moody. He may find that you're always fanning, right? The night sweats, so the bed is soaked when you wake up in the morning. But nobody's having the conversation. And I know it's not an easy conversation to have. So I wanted us to talk about some ways that we can break that silence. So choosing the right moment. You don't want to have that conversation when you're watching cricket or basketball. He's on the couch watching the game. Honey, we need to talk. No, that's not the time. You find a time when both of you are relaxing, and you can schedule it. You could say, there's something I want to talk to you about. Maybe not, honey, we need to talk. Whenever somebody says, we need to talk, your head go to something really bad. Be honest about what you're experiencing, but gentle. What do I mean by that? Remember that one of the symptoms may be low libido. It's not an easy thing to talk about, right? But you have to be honest about that. But again, it's how you say it. Educate together. Let's go on the internet and find out what are some things we can do as a couple to help us to manage this. Because it is an us thing, right? It's not just about the woman. It is an us thing. Explain your symptoms clearly. And this may sound duh, but I had a friend who said to me, she told her husband, I'm going through perimenopause. And he looked at her like, what does that mean? So when you talk about a hot flash, he may not understand what that means either. So explain what it is you are going through. Use your I statements. I feel this way, X, Y, and Z. Right? My colleagues used to laugh at me because I would walk into the office and just stand under the vent every morning. But again, it's a conversation I had with everyone in the office, so they knew. Share what you need. Many times we're going through this. We may need some extra help, whether it means at the end of the day, I'm feeling so overwhelmed and having hot flashes that I can't do homework with the kids. And maybe that's my role in the family. But I don't share that I need help with that. But then I get resentful because I'm not getting help with that. So share what you need. And depending on the ages of your kids, include them in that conversation. I had a friend who said she was kind of the calendar holder for the family. So she knows when the kids are going swimming. She knew their schedule. Of late, that brain fog, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but some of us have this, you can't remember things. And so certain activities slip through the cracks because mom wasn't keeping track of all these things in her head anymore. So having a conversation, that's why they created phones with reminders. But have the conversation with the family. Also reassure your partner that this is something we can get through together. This too shall pass. Right? And keep the dialogue open. Things are going to change. It's a very dynamic situation. So keep the dialogue open. Have the check-ins with each other. So some of the takeaways I want us to remember today. Menopause is a natural part of life. It's not a loss of vitality. It's just a natural changing. When you think about it, I want you to think about, okay, what are some positive things? How could I reframe all of the negative things that we put on there? And don't get me wrong, I know it is a challenging time. But I think if we think about the fact that there are positive things to it, I want you to, I was going to have a slide to have you put some potentially positive things to it. But if anyone, can you think of anything positive about menopause? Eh? No more menstrual cycle, right? No more cramps. The money you're saving on tampons and pads, right? What else? That quality time that you now be able to spend. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Good. No pregnancy. No more little babies. Been there, done that. Absolutely. Remember that self-care may also mean healthcare, meaning you may not, you may have to loop in your physician with that as well. And support systems matter. When I talk about community, I'm talking about, like I said, in your churches, definitely in the family and in the workplaces. Now, how am I doing on time? Okay. I wanted to touch on a genogram because I think one of the issues with, and not just menopause, I think just with health risk in general, is that we don't talk about it, right? How many of you have been able to talk to your mom or your aunt or your grandmother about going through the change? Because some of them may not call it menopause, right? But they can tell you what symptoms they had. If you have daughters, start having the conversation. But creating a genogram is also helpful for you to be able to track familial patterns of diseases. So whether it be heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, you can see patterns, which then allows you to be proactive, and it allows you to then also have that conversation with your physician. On the internet, there are a plethora of templates, ready-made templates that you can create. Start with yourself and then build out on both sides of the family. Start having conversations with family about diseases in the family. And I know it necessarily may not be an easy conversation for a lot of families, but you can make it conversational. It doesn't have to be a survey, right? You can talk about, Uncle Tim always used to show up drunk at family gatherings. And then maybe somebody would chime in and go, yeah, Uncle Tim was an alcoholic. So make it conversational. But in that way, you can map out certain patterns of diseases in the family. Here are some resources I wanted to leave with you. The North American Menopause Society has so much information on there. You can join, it's free. There is mymenoplan.org to track symptoms, because again, the symptoms are varied. You and I may not be having the same type of symptoms, so it's important for you to know what it is you are experiencing. And there's also a podcast, and I left an area that you can put your own resource as well. It's always interesting to me that when we look at the stats, 80% of the workforce in the US and in the UK are going through menopause. Either perimenopause or menopause. I'm going to hazard that that's about the same in Grenada, which means as employers, we need to do a better job creating that awareness and including support for our workforce. We did a really good job with maternity, right? But think of all the effort had to go into that for us to have maternity leave and things like that. The same has to be on this end of things. But really, that would have to mean we're also advocating for ourselves. It's not just going to happen out of the blue, because we're all kind of suffering in silence. So talk about it. Reach out to me if you ever want to just talk about how to create a support group. I'll be more than happy to have that conversation with you. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your attention. And I just wanted to leave this with you. Menopause is not an ending. It's a powerful transition into a new stage of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harry. We now have a presentation. Thank you again, Dr. Harry, for the presentation, coping, managing strategies to do so, and the key messages that we would have learned here this morning in dealing with perimenopause and menopause. We now have a short break, 15-minute break. We will resume in 15 minutes. poem by Mr. Anderson Richardson, but before we do so, we have a little giveaway for persons in the audience. So underneath your chairs, there are affirmations there. So if you can find one, then you have a gift to receive. So those of you who would have retrieved those would receive a gift. Right? Okay, so only 2 were retrieved. There should be 2 more. There's one. There's one at the back. Congrats to all those of you who would have gotten gifts today. So we'll now continue with the program. We'll have a poem by Mr. Anderson Richardson.
Good morning again to everybody. So I wrote this piece that's titled Resilience, and I want to dedicate it to all of us today, especially those of us that are human service providers, because we are in that field. Rise from the fall. Let's shake off the dust. Never let life challenges overcome us. If we open our eyes, we will see the stormy situations affecting you and me. Challenges in life are never easy, but with human service, it comes with the territory. Real hard work with very little thanks. The life of us soldiers at various ranks. Embracing challenges and difficult situations, we answer the call to serve the nation. Though the road is rocky and lonely at times, still we press on these upward climbs. Sailing through difficult waters, sailing through dangerous waters, often viewed as crazy and out of our minds. It takes brave people to do the work we do, for the harvest is ripe, but the laborers are few. Trying to stand and be counted, carrying society's trauma, leaving us brokenhearted. Every aspect of service further highlights who we are. These qualities can be seen from miles afar. Many of us got weak and fell along the way, but were determined to fight night and day. In this difficult fight, people mainly see our glory, but masked in the mix is our own story. Our struggles we endure to see results, enduring hardships, pain, and human insults. Still, we rise above the odds on every occasion. The battles we've won needs a celebration. Being able to stand even after the storm leave many questioning, where did this strength come from? Resilience gives rise to many possibilities, the backbone of progress for many centuries. Let us continue to stand our ground in every situation, be the beacon of hope in this next generation. Silent sacrifices are sometimes rewarded openly. Success at times overtakes us suddenly. So don't lose hope. Let's continue in that race. A successful completion must be our place. Rise above the odds. Shine for the world to see that great potential lies within you and me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson. Deserving of another round of applause. Don't lose hope. We now have another presentation, Resilience, and this will be done by Mrs. Kesey Matthew Clarence, head of the Psychosocial Support Unit, a licensed clinical psychologist. Mrs. Matthew Clarence is a licensed clinical psychologist whose early career included teaching and social work. She holds a master's degree in clinical psychology from Midwestern State University and has led the Psychosocial Support Unit of the Ministry of Social Development for the past 14 years. With her training and expertise in numerous areas of mental health, she has served in various roles, championing the need for greater access to and increased mental health services for all. Her latest interest is in climate change and disaster mental health during times of catastrophes. Mrs. Matthew Clarence has led the psychosocial team that helped address the mental health impacts of COVID-19 and Hurricane Beryl on Grenadians. She is passionate about mental health and aims to raise awareness to reduce stigma and discrimination against those facing mental health challenges, advocating strongly for greater mental health services for all Grenadians. Let's welcome Mrs. Matthew Clarence.
Good morning, everyone. I'm waiting for my song, the song I was told to play. Oh, yes. So we are talking. So we're talking resilience, right? Resilience. And listen, I did not choose that song. I was told to play the song to introduce my talk. So I'm so glad Minister left and PS left. But we recognize, we say, hey, let's make this local. If we're talking resilience, we are talking, what are we talking? We're talking something like the callaloo leaf. We're talking storms, rains, struggles, and a lot of us here, all of us here have been through struggles, right? Is there anybody here who have not been through a hard time? If you have not, well then exchange your life with mine. Because life can be tough. So today we want to talk about resilience. And as we go through the session, we're going to explore what is resilience. Then I'm going to just briefly look at some resilience risk and protective factors. And also, the meat of the factor is how can we build resilience as individuals and as a nation. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about post-traumatic growth. So when we talk resilience, what exactly are we talking about? Resilience is the ability to recover, grow, adapt, bounce back. When we face difficult times in life, I'm sure all of us have had something, and when we look back, we say, I don't know how I got through this. But look at me today. I never thought I would have made it, but you've made it. And I want you to turn to your partner and say, you've made it. Yeah, man, I see a nice bounce in the front with the men. Yes, we've made it. And I want you to turn and say, if you have not made it, we're making it. Yes, man. Yes, we're making it. So when we're talking resilience, it is so critical that the bounce back is something positive, that we're able to reinforce our strengths, we're able to grow, and we're able to recognize that in the face of adversity, we've had grown, and we have had certain cognitive and emotional tools that equipped us to deal with it. So when we're talking resilience, let's look at what resilience is not. So as I established before, resilience is not an absence of difficulties. As long as you have life, you will have challenges. Resilience is not a case of something that I have inborn or genetic. It's not a case where I have it or I don't because I was born with it. Resilience is a learned behavior, even if there might be certain temperaments that might predispose an individual. But we're talking about building resilience. And why is resilience important? Why are we talking resilience? Because we have quickly become a nation that no longer wants to struggle, that we no longer want to go through difficult times. And we have to be able to embrace that difficulties and challenges are a part of life. When you are a resilient individual, you're able to recover quicker. You're able to recognize that, hey, I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, or last year, or 2 months ago. As you look at yourself, you recognize that resilience is important for good mental health. Good mental health in the workplace, good mental health in our families, good mental health even as we go through perimenopause and menopause. Lack of resilience is sometimes feeling as if we're stuck, that we're not able to deal with life problems. We're always a victim. So why bad things always happening to me? Nothing good ever happens in my life. And being able to get rid of the victim mentality so that you can grow. And as we talk resilience, in the era of climate change, nothing is more important than resilience today. Simply because we know that with climate change, there are going to be disasters, that we are faced with increased risk of natural disasters. And a resilient individual means faster recovery. And while studies have recognized that there are some individual level factors that make maybe Ms. Forsyth more resilient than myself, but at the same time, it is a combination of those individual factors with other environmental factors. So some individual level factors include, as you see there, hardiness, toughness. How can we build that in our children? How can we build that in our family? High self-esteem, that I can think highly of myself and I can view myself in a positive light. Being able to experience positive emotions. Self-efficacy, that I have the belief that I can do difficult things, I can accomplish goals, I can accomplish tasks, and our general sense of our perception of our control and mastery, in addition to our sense of coherence and that ability to bounce back. So while these are individual factors, critiques have said that, hey, it's not just one individual factor. I cannot predict whether someone else is more resilient than myself, but it's a combination of these factors. So I just want us to understand that resilience is complex. It's a very complex and dynamic factor, and it changes over time. So maybe you can recognize in yourself that maybe when I was in my early 20s, well, for me, that's a very long time ago, maybe I can say, I handled things better. I wasn't affected much by problems or challenges, or I was able to bounce back. And now that I am getting older in years, I may find that, things are not as it should be. So resilience is dynamic. It can change over the time. It's also context dependent. That as we talk resilience, while it's good that most of us can bounce back, we must also consider the fact that some individuals, based on their traumatic experiences, we're talking about child sexual abuse, domestic violence, whether it's in the family, whether it's for children, those traumatic experiences can make one less resilient. Again, because it can predispose the individual to certain mental health or psychological conditions. And also recognizing that resilience is neurobiological. So Mr. Campbell talked about a bit earlier on the stress response and how it affects our neural system and how it affects our immune system. That neurobiology has shown that resilience is connected to our neural circuitry. And lastly, that resilience is also culturally dependent. That what one culture might determine to be resilient might not be for another culture. So resilience is a very broad context, but lately there has been a lot of research into resilience because we've recognized that individual resilience, community resilience, even now in a time of climate change, is very important for recovery. So let's look at some risk and protective factors. So look at it. I have a whole list of them. I may not be able to get through all of them. Let's look at the protective factors. That if there is a feeling of control over one's life, it might predispose you to a higher level of resilience, a sense of cohesion with others, close relationships with competent adults, connections to pro-social groups or organizations, tolerance for delayed gratification. See that one? Right? We're in the gimme culture. No. And sometimes not being able to recognize that I may not be able to buy the vehicle right now, but I can make the best use of taking the bus. That I cannot buy the expensive brand name clothing, but Shein will do. They're lovely stuff on Shein, huh? Right? And being able to change the mindset so that it can be a protective factor for you. And there, sense of humor. So we started with a little callaloo leaf thing and we laugh. It's good to laugh. It's good to be able to find humor in certain situations. Look at the family protective factors. We say it all the time. Good parenting skills, trust in relationships, well-defined family roles, opportunities. Look at the other side, the risk factors that we know. Parental and sibling drug abuse, or just poor parenting practices, lack of parental supervision. All of those things can make you more resilient or less resilient. And of course, our communities, which we sometimes forget, the importance of community resilience. And we saw it a lot during Hurricane Beryl when we did our psychosocial response, that there were some communities, everybody pulled together, right? Knocking back roofs, helping each other. And there were some communities, people Did not help. There was no community cohesion. So how can we see ourselves as part of contributing to community resilience? So how can we build resilience? And the plan was to come with a little weight for the muscles. But the person who had to bring the weight, forget my weight, right? But resilience is, you can do this. That's resilience, right? We have to build the muscle. Resilience is a process. So imagine, right? If I didn't have on the jacket, you might have seen a little lack of muscles in the arm, right? So imagine resilience being like that. That you're lifting maybe a 2-pound weight, 3 pound, 5 pound, 10 pound, and what that does to your body. So in building resilience, I mentioned it's learned. And that's the beauty of it. That if something is a learned behavior, it means that we can all learn to be more resilient. And I'm saying we, because when it comes as mental health practitioners, we are not immune against mental health issues. That if we ourselves do not build our resilience, we do not manage our stress in the workplace properly, maybe some of us are going through perimenopause, or maybe later menopause, and we do not take care of ourselves, then we're in problems. So resilience, as we said, can help foster growth and well-being. So let's just look briefly. Ways to build resilience. I'm going to just look at 7. What's the first one? Engage in realistic optimism. And the second? Be cognitively flexible. The third? Become self-aware. Fourth? Say that one again. Face your fears. We're going to look at each one just now. 5? 6? And finally, find meaning. So let's look at the first one. And notice the word realistic in front of optimism. Realistic. So I can stand here and I can say, at the end of the week, I would have $1 million in my bank account. I claim it in the name of Jesus. Jesus can work miracles, I'm not saying that. Right? But I'm working in the government service. There is no way I can have $1 million. Yeah, I may need, as Mr. Campbell is suggesting, I may need to extend my time. Maybe 10, 20, 100 years. I don't know. Right? But when we're talking realistic optimism, we're talking about protecting yourself against the negative effects of stress. How can you be positive in the midst of all of the struggles? How can your thoughts be positive? So we are not ignoring life's problems, but we're able to remain focused on the positive and not the negative, right? And we know sometimes among us, even in our workplaces, there are some of us who are very negative. Not so? If it's you, just shake your head. All right? We want to be able to frame the negative thoughts into positive thoughts. How can we turn the problem into a solution? And when it comes to realistic optimism, it's being able to focus on the positive things around you. And again, it's being grateful for what you have. That we can have the symposium today, that we can see each other, maybe we have not seen for quite some time. We had a nice break, and everybody here is entitled to free lunch because Mr. Campbell said, if you did that, you will have free lunches, right? And with optimism is learning to reframe. But important too is surrounding yourself with optimistic people. That's very, very, very important. That the people around us can support, can help us in times of struggle, look at the event differently. And how can we behave and act in positive ways? So when something bad happens, what can we do? What's the first point I have there? Remember that difficulties don't last forever. Sometimes easier said than done, right? When we have our own struggles, whatever it might be, the pain sometimes can be so severe that we feel as if, well, oh my God, Jesus, I know you're alive, but oh God, this is a lot. Don't know how much I can bear. So remember that difficulties don't last forever. 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line, would that problem matter? Would it really, really matter? And what strengths do you have? And as a people, we have so much strengths that we can use to manage difficulties. There are so many resources. So even in planning the symposium, all of what you've heard, presenters, local, ministry staff, because we recognize that even among us, we have strengths. So what about yourself? What strengths do you possess? Maybe problem solving. Maybe you're a critical thinker. Maybe you're able to just bring people together. And notice anything good in the crisis. Notice anything good. Maybe I learned something about myself. Maybe I have reconciled in some relationship. Second, self-awareness. Self-awareness. When we have a better understanding of ourselves, what does it say there? We are then empowered to make changes, face adversities, and build on our areas of strength and make improvements. So how can we be self-aware? Do we know what we're feeling right now? So earlier on, we had the nice soothing exercise that allowed you to identify your thoughts. What were you thinking? What's happening with you right now? Maybe you're anxious. Maybe you're fearful about something. Maybe you're struggling with something. Maybe you're having a lot of self-doubts about your family situation, about your partner, about your jobs. Maybe this is the last time I'm inviting you to this forum because you will no longer be at the Ministry of Social Development, or you would no longer be at a particular workplace. And that's okay. Being able to identify your thoughts and regulate those emotions in addition to identifying your strengths and areas of growth. And when it comes to self-awareness, mindfulness, which we did this morning, is an important activity to help build. Being mindful of your surroundings, your breathing, whatever means of mindfulness you can use. Mr. Campbell talked about journaling and being able to walk through all of those thoughts. So self-awareness, you cannot build resiliency if you do not know yourself. If you have not started the journey of self-discovery, it is never too late. You can start today. You can start to get to know yourself better today. Another important way to build resiliency is cognitive flexibility. Cognitive flexibility. How are you able to adapt your mind and your ways of processing when a situation happens? That you're not only black and white, but you can see gray. That you're able to be flexible in how you see a situation and think of a situation. And also being able to reappraise the situation. Is there another way to look at the situation? Am I able to take this person's perspective? I don't agree, but I can see where you're coming from. What would you tell a friend? And every time we ask that as clinicians, our clients always laugh. When we say, okay, so what's your best friend name again? Oh, Shauna. So if it was Shauna struggling with that situation, what would you tell Shauna? And they laugh, oh gosh, I know you're going with that, you know. Because sometimes it's much easier to give a friend advice than ourselves. Sometimes we know all the answers for other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we're not able to. And how can we be flexible cognitively so that we're able to work through that situation? Another one, facing fears. This one is a big one. We all have fears, be it some past traumatic experience, be it a present situation. At times, what's easier is to avoid the fed situation? How can we learn to accept what is being fed while understanding why our approach is fair? How can we use fear as an opportunity to guide and to understand and to see the bigger picture? And I love this quote from James Baldwin that says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced." So imagine what we're doing to ourselves when we allow fear to overcome us. And fear and anxiety to a certain level is good, right? If you look at this diagram here, you would recognize that when there is low arousal, see what happens there? Weak. Performance is weak. As arousal increases, then you're able to perform, cope better, deal with life's problems. But when arousal becomes too high, what do you see happening there? There's a dip, right? So it's being able to balance that level of fear that it doesn't get to the point where you're not able to cope. We're getting there. Physical fitness and living well. And we've heard so much about physical fitness and wellness. We've heard from Dr. Harry. We've heard from Mr. Campbell's New Start. And again, the importance of physical fitness and wellness on all different levels for good mental health. Social support. And social support, when it comes to disaster mental health, is one of the most important recovery, one of the most important indicators for disaster recovery. I will say it again. Social support in times of disasters, crisis, and loss is one of the most important protective factors and indicators for a successful recovery. So as individuals, we have to be able to connect. We have to be able to seek support among ourselves in our family system to improve our general well-being. And again, we're hearing it again. Resilience equal to meaning, purpose, faith. That if bad things happen to you and you're not able to find meaning, you're not able to connect spiritually to whatever being it might be, then it makes it much more difficult for you to bounce back. The research is clear that religion and spirituality, when it comes to mental health, is a protective factor. And it's a good way of coping, because when things happen around us that we have no control over, we know who controls our future, right? Right. So that is the difference. So as individuals, in building resiliency, we have to be able to use whatever means, whether it's scriptures, prayers, whatever higher being you connect to find some purpose. And the importance of prayer and meditation in it. And we're almost to the end. When we go through rough times, when we go through challenges, loss, breakups, financial difficulties, abuse, depression, anxiety, and the research is clear. Worldwide, depression affects 1 in 10 persons. Right? So, just look around. We have persons among us who have struggled, who are struggling, and who will experience depression or anxiety at some point in their lives. But recognizing that in the face of difficulties, there can be post-traumatic growth. And post-traumatic growth is the positive changes that occur from all our difficulties and trauma and experiences. And when it comes to post-traumatic growth or post-traumatic healing, these 5 areas, you would recognize some growth. Personal strength. So yeah, the muscles. Yeah, man. Before you were lifting a 5-pound bag. After your struggle, give me the 20 pound. I'm good. I can handle. Personal growth. Improve relationships. Spiritual and existential changes. Appreciation of life. So you recognize, I could have been dead. This could have gone either way. But now I have a new appreciation of life because I'm now able to breathe and not feel suffocated or not feel as if I'm in this deep dark hole, that I have the sunshine and I can say, wow, life is beautiful. And recognizing that in the midst of life, there are new possibilities. Anything can happen at any time. And as I close, I'm going to leave you with this quote that says, when we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. And I repeat, when we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautifully broad spectrum of the human experience. So I encourage us to strive to be like Callow Leaf sometimes. Doesn't mean that we're not going to experience pain, but we can say that we've endured. We can say that we've grown. We can say that we've eaten the Callow Leaf because it's important for nutrition too. And that we can boldly say that I am becoming more resilient. So let's encourage our family members. Let us encourage each other to strive for resilience.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Matthew Clarence. We now have a gift presentation. Thank you again. Resilience won't make your problems go away, but let us remember the importance of building resilience. We now have a musical interlude with Pan, but before that happens, we'll have some giveaways. The first person to arrive this morning was Miss Glendonna Johnson. No, but I was here before her. She met me here. Enjoy your gift, Miss Johnson. The last male to arrive, Mr. Garth Walters. Now we have a question. Name 2 ways to build resilience. Name 2 ways to build resilience. So you're going to stand and answer the question. So the first person to stand, 2 ways to build resilience. Okay. Now the final part, we need 3 volunteers. 3 persons. So they're going to dip in the bowl, pick a paper from the bowl, So she's to laugh for 5 seconds. I think she did more than 5. Laughter is a great form of stress relief, so let's remember that. Complete the phrase, I am. Affirmations can help reduce anxiety and stress, shift negative thinking, boost confidence if you repeat them regularly. So thank you very much to the persons who participated. We'll now have the musical interlude with the pan. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. She sat down. And she's to dance to the music playing. So the pan is...
I got this
Come forward, please, so we can
sing. It goes electric wavy when I turn it on. Off from my city, off from my home. We're flying up, no ceiling when we in our zone. I got that sunshine in my pocket, got that good soul in my feet. Feel that hot blood in my body when it drops. Ooh, I can't take my eyes off it.
Thank you very much to all our volunteers. We'll now have the musical interlude with the pan. Thank you very much. Let's give him another round of applause. This one really did touch the spot. We will now have the vote of thanks. But before we do that, we have one more giveaway. Persons, check the back of your programs. There's an affirmation at the back of someone's program. Okay, so it should read, I am enough, at the back of the program. No? Well, I guess we're all enough. Oh. What we do. Congratulations, Mr. Peters.
Good afternoon to all. In all things, it is necessary to give thanks. According to Martin Seligman, the pioneer of positive psychology, expressing gratitude is associated with psychological, physical, and interpersonal benefits. Today's event is the brainchild of the Psychosocial Support Unit. It's our second year hosting a mental health symposium, and it would not have been possible without the help of many key persons. We thank Pastor Donneray Wilkinson for inviting God's presence into today's event. We would be nothing without God. We are grateful to our acting permanent secretary, Ms. Petal Rush, for her presence and support. Thank you to the various heads of departments and our specially invited guests. We appreciate your presence. Special thanks to Senator Gloria Thomas for the opening remarks with a reassurance of the government's commitment to improved mental health resources for Grenadians and the need to reduce stigma and discrimination. To the unit's newest songbird, Ms. Alina Mark, thank you for your soul-searching rendition.
To our most esteemed facilitators, Mr. Sterling Campbell, we appreciate your presentation on mental health in the workplace. We endeavor to better manage our mental health at work and take better care of ourselves. Dr. Arlette Harry, thank you for educating us on the important issue of perimenopause and menopause. Our own Mrs. Matthew Clarence, thank you for reminding us of the importance of resilience in our daily lives. We indeed can weather tough storms with cognitive flexibility, support, spirituality, and the ability to face our fears. Thank you all for sharing your expertise with us. Mr. Anderson Richardson, your spoken words were excellent and touched our hearts. It's a reminder of the importance of writing poems and journaling to improve our mental health. Music is the heart of many people, and so we are extremely grateful for our panelist, Mr. Carl Stewart, your relaxing music, such talent. To our collaborating partners from different ministries, we say a huge thank you. Today would not have been so beautiful without your participants across the various ministries and workplaces, such as the Child Protection Authorities, Grand Bacolet Nurses, the police, Grand Shop, and so forth.
Also, the Grenada Association of Social Workers, include our very own colleagues at the Ministry of Social Development. Thank you for supporting us. To our chairperson, Ms. Petal Louisan, you did a remarkable job. Thank you. We extend thank you also to our protocol person, Ms. Vilma Paul. We'd also like to say thank you to our sponsors for the giveaways, Living Essentials, and Tiny Leaves. We thank you so much for that. To our online viewers and various media houses, we appreciate your being a part of this event.
Lastly, this symposium, though undertaken as the Psychosocial Support Unit, could not have been possible without the hardworking staff of the unit. We have an amazing team. We are extremely hardworking and committed to championing the cause of the mental health in Grenada. And before we wrap up, we have a special message we would like to present to you.
As mental health clinicians of the Psychosocial Support Unit, we are committed to
offering you a warm and professional space,
maintaining confidentiality,
fostering positive change and well-being.
We are committed to helping our clients regulate those negative emotions,
creating a safe space where clients feel heard,
encouraging growth and development,
client wellness and well-being,
evidence-based practice,
identifying and working with our clients' strengths.
Happy World Mental Health Day!
So we will now call on the entire team. So just step forward as we present ourselves.
Thank you again to the team and to all of you who would have joined us here this morning. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for your appreciation. World Mental Health Day is actually tomorrow, October 10th. So let us remember all that we would have learned here today, and let us apply it not just today, but every day, right? It serves as a powerful reminder that there is no health without mental health. And this year's campaign will focus on the urgent need to support mental health and psychosocial needs of others. On this Mental Health Day, let us intensify our efforts to create a world where mental health is valued, protected, and accessible for all, especially in the face of adversity. And let us also remember the theme, access to services, mental health in catastrophes and emergencies. And when we are looking after ourselves, let us remember, when we are looking after others, let us remember to look after ourselves, because self-care is not selfish. And I'll leave you with that little quote from Maya Angelou. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. Thank you very much. Do have a pleasant day, and to all of you, get home safely. My name, Petra Louison.